preserve our own life and the lives of others. I'm going to turn it over to Andrew to give us an update on RUF Davidson for a moment, and or for however long you want to take, brother. So we're looking forward to hearing about how God's working there, and hope it's yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. I would like to take 3 hours for my update. Is that okay? Thank you. No, I'm just kidding, and I'll be brief. And just want to say thank you for having me this morning. It's a pleasure to be back here at Harvest. Look forward to giving this update, to preaching God's Word for us, and to sticking around after the service for our fellowship meal. And so I just want to give you a little taste of what ministry has been like on Davidson's campus. As Fred mentioned, I'm the RUF, Reformed University Fellowship Campus Minister at Davidson College. And if this whets your appetite, please do stick around afterwards for the meal. I'd love to share more stories from this past semester. But what I really want to share with you is this. Back in December, during Christmas break, the Lord was really impressing upon me a desire to pray for spiritual renewal and revival. Spiritual renewal and revival that begins with my own heart and soul and mind, and my family's hearts and minds, and extends to our student leader group in RUF, but also extends to all of Davidson's campus. And in particular, he put James 4, verse 3 on my mind and heart. You do not have because you do not ask. And so I just started praying boldly for spiritual renewal and revival, and inviting our students to do the same and just say, hey, let's boldly come to the throne, ask for the Lord to pour out His Spirit, and just see what happens. And y'all, I can tell you, I'm confident that these students join me in praying this. I mean, certainly I prayed along these lines the whole semester. But towards the end of the spring semester, all I can say is God was up to a lot of things on campus and in our group. We had been studying in the Gospels this series, Encounters with Jesus. And so we saw how He ministered personally to various individuals throughout all the Gospels. You know, men and women like Nicodemus, the woman at the well, the sinful woman that came during the Pharisees' dinner party, and you might know, washed Jesus' feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair, the rich young ruler. And as we were reflecting on this, God used His Word powerfully in our midst. I had, towards the last couple weeks of the semester, students coming up to me and just kind of eyes bulging, just saying like, Andrew, are you feeling this? And I would just smile thinking, yes, like I feel God at work in my own heart, giving me a greater love for Jesus, a greater burden for the lost. And He was doing similar things in the lives of these students. Not just one or two, but several students having a similar experience. And then just taking a step back and watching who was coming through the doors of RUF. We had a lot of non-Christians showing up at our meetings towards the end of the year, because our committed core group of students were inviting their non-Christian friends. And I just want to tell you about one student in particular. I'm going to leave out personal information. I'm going to not even mention her name. But we had one young woman who is an international student and is Muslim. And she became friends with one of our student leaders. And this student leader just faithfully pursued this Muslim young woman and invited her to several RUF functions, and she came. I remember the first time she came to large group. She came right when after I had started preaching, came through the front door right in the front, right when I was preaching, in her full Muslim dress, in her hijab, and before everyone in the middle of the sermon asked, "Is it okay? Can I be here? Is this okay?" And so I stopped preaching and said, "Yeah, we'd love to have you." And she sat right there in the front row and stared up at me the whole time. And I just thought, wow, I get to preach God's word and share the gospel to this Muslim woman. And I got to meet her afterwards. Well, fast forward a few weeks, it's the end of the semester, and for the first time since the pandemic started, So the first time since I've been a campus minister, we got to take a group of students to summer conference at the end of the year. This is RUF's big, huge conference. Hundreds and hundreds of students from schools all over the country come. There's actually 4 weeks of summer conference because there's so many students that want to come. So we signed up for week 3. And this Muslim girl's friend texted me and said, "What do you think about me inviting her to summer conference?" And she said in her text, "I'm a little bit concerned that she might be overwhelmed." And so I thought about it, I prayed about it, and I responded back and I said, "Hey, I think you should invite her. She'll definitely feel overwhelmed. That's okay. Even Christian students that go are overwhelmed by the size of summer conference. And that's okay. She'll be with you, with her friends. She'll be, I'll keep an eye out for her, and I'll have our student leaders keep an eye out for her." And then I just said, it doesn't hurt just to invite her, and she can turn it down if she wants, if she's kind of scared. So our student leader invited her Muslim friend. Her Muslim friend said, "Yes, I'd love to come." And she signed up, and she came. I actually have a picture of our group at summer conference, and you can tell right away who this student is because she wore her headdress the whole time. But here's the thing. The Lord heard our prayers for this student, prayers that she would feel loved and accepted while she's at this Christian conference. And one of the highlights of that week, in fact, one of the highlights of this past year for me, was sitting down the last night of summer conference. Every night, all the staff, so all the campus ministers and interns, we gather in one room to encourage one another, just to say, like, here's what's going on in our group this week, to discuss a few business things, and then to pray with and for one another. And so on the last night of summer conference, there was a young woman who was an intern. She said, "I would like to share a word of encouragement." She said, "I got to meet one of Andrew's students, his Muslim student from, I won't mention which country. But she said, that's the country I grew up in. And never did I think that I would be using my Arabic at summer conference. But here I am talking in Arabic with Andrew's student. And she's telling me things like, I feel an overwhelming sense of peace in this place. And so the woman on staff said, we know where that peace comes from. And she doesn't yet, Andrew's student doesn't yet, but she senses it. And she just was so encouraged by that. I was so encouraged by that. And I just saw so much joy in the student's face and in her life and in her demeanor. She had a wonderful time at summer conference. And I'm excited to see her again in the fall and to have her, hopefully, Lord willing, be a part of our group and come to more of our Bible studies, our large group meetings, and to get more and more exposure to Jesus, the Prince of Peace, so that she might sense where this peace is coming from. So, like I said, I've got many more stories than this. I'd love to share them with you. I'd love to tell you about the student that came to Christ at the very beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. When the school dismissed all students, he became a Christian that day. I'd love to tell you that story. I'd love to tell you the story about the pastor's kid who came to college suffering from depression and anxiety and has grown since then in community and in seeing a Christian counselor. I'd love to tell you these stories of how God is calling his people to himself. So, like I said, please stick around for the fellowship meal. I'd love to meet with you and talk with you, and please ask me to share more stories. I'd love to tell you more. Last thing I'll say, just in case you have to run after service, I'd love for you to be praying for our new intern, Mary Neal Lucas. She's coming to Davidson, Lord willing, in the fall. She needs to raise her support. She's about halfway there. So if you can remember to pray for Mary Neal Lucas, please do. I've got some of her prayer cards with me, so please grab them for me after service. Put them on your fridge. I can't wait to have her come and help me minister, in particular, to the young women on Davidson's campus. So thank you so much, and like I said, hope to see you after the service.